Theresa, for being here today. It's so wonderful to have you. I know you. You are in New York, right, with
Yeah,
Luke,
yes.
and
Yes, thank you for having me on. It's great.
my pleasure. And you have written a book,
Yes,
and that book is called A Journey to Healing Through Divine Mercy.
correct.
And would you help us understand and to the viewers, what inspired you to write this book?
Sure. Well, when I was 17 years old, I became pregnant and I hid it from my parents for like 4 months. I didn't, I was afraid to tell my parents, like any young kid is when something like that happens. And I went through a million scenarios in my head of what I thought was going to happen, but all the scenarios that I played in my head, none of them were what actually did happen. When I told my parents, my father told me to get out of the house and forget that he was my daughter, that I was his daughter, and that I was supposed to forget that he was my father. And so I was, 17 years old, no place to go, no job, no anything. And over a course of time, he had my sister keep calling me and telling me he wanted me to have an abortion. I started fighting with the baby's father, ended up telling him to leave me alone. To make a long story short, I finally gave in to the pressure and ended up saying yes to the abortion, not because I wanted an abortion, but because I felt like I had no choice. Like we talk about, free choice all the time. Like women go out there merrily, are picking abortion, but so many women, as you know, are choosing abortion because they feel like they have no choice, not because they have a choice. And I was, like I said, at the end of my 4th month of pregnancy, so I was pretty pregnant, and I ended up having a saline abortion. They don't even do that anymore. But they inject your abdomen with saline, and it causes you to go into labor. I was in a hospital by myself. And nobody told me anything about the development of my baby, what was going to happen to me, nothing about the abortion at all. The doctor came in and injected me with the saline solution. And after a period of time, I went into labor. And I was in labor for many, 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 many hours. And I ended up giving birth to a dead baby boy. And I looked at him laying on the bed, like just, like instant hate, instant shame, instant guilt. I couldn't even believe that it was legal, that something like this was allowed to happen. And I rang for the nurse, and she came into the room, and she picked him up and she dumped him in this jar and marked it 3A and walked out of the room. And to say that my life was on a downward spiral after that is an understatement. I looked for help. It always bothered me. I never wanted the abortion from the beginning. I was coerced, and I looked for help. At this time, it was actually pre-Roe versus Wade, right before Roe versus Wade, but it was legal in the state of New York where I live. And I looked for help, and there was no help out there. And it took me, it was like 15 years before I really had healing, because there was just no place to go. Nobody was talking about it. There just wasn't anything out there. And so my journey of healing was pretty much very individual, because there was no place to go. I ended up getting help after I got married, a really bad relationship like so many people have. I married a drug addict, alcoholic. I ended up having 2 children with him. And I ended up leaving him because things were so crazy. And I ended up going back to church at one point because of my children. I wanted my children to have the sacraments. And it was there that I met a priest who I ended up talking to. And for the first time in my life, after all these years, somebody was validating my experience of abortion, the guilt I felt, the shame I felt. I hated myself. I lived in despair, all those different things. And I'm a firm believer that you can't really look at your experience of abortion until you first come to know the love of God. And it's only through that love of God, that unconditional love that he gives you, that you're really able to look at the horrific action of abortion and what it does. Because I think to look at it before then, it's just like, it's almost impossible. It would throw you into such despair. I mean, we both know women commit suicide, whatever, right? And so I started a relationship with God. So anyway, the book, it's funny, it wasn't written all at once. This book is really different things that I wrote in my healing journey over the years. And the book is, like you said, it's called A Journey to Healing Through Divine Mercy. And it's a book of meditations. And In the Catholic Church, we have a saint. Her name is Saint Faustina, and she was from Poland. And she had apparitions from Jesus where he would come and he would speak to her. And one of the things that he used to speak to her about, well, the main thing he came to speak to her about was how he wanted the world to know about his mercy, how even the greatest sinner can trust in his mercy, that he wanted to give his mercy to tormented souls, to sinners, to heal them, to make them whole again. And so the book, what I've done is like every meditation, there's different meditations addressing different issues in relation to healing from abortion. And the meditations start out with a quote from the book of Divine Mercy in My Soul, which is St. Faustina's autobiography. And then there's the meditation that I wrote. And then I close the meditation with a quote from one of the popes, either Pope Benedict, Pope John Paul II, Pope Francis, something that'll kind of validate the whole idea of what she said, what I said, and closing with a Pope quote. So it's really an invitation. Like so many times before you've had healings, things will happen to you in your life and you don't even realize that you're reacting to your abortion. You don't even know. You're not familiar. I call them your abortion connectors, people, places, or things that will get triggered from your experience on a subconscious level that will cause you to act certain ways on a conscious level, right? And until you start to be able to come to understand what those are and know what your personal abortion connectors are, you're relating to things or maybe acting out in ways that are really kind of crazy, and you don't know why, but what's happening is it's triggering that trauma. So through these meditations, I think mostly what I'm trying to do is let people know they're not alone. You're not crazy because you know that. Everything, it's denial when it comes to the impact of abortion on women. And we know there's millions of women out there that are suffering from this. And so the meditations used in different ways, the meditations in the book. Some people, I developed a ministry, it's called Entering Canaan. And a lot of people that do Entering Canaan use the meditations. We have day retreat, weekend retreats, and we also have like once a month what we call gatherings, which is a group where people get together to discuss. So a lot of the facilitators of the ministry will use the book at those gatherings, and then the meditations are a catalyst for sharing within a group. Other people use it individually for individual meditations and to help them to understand more where they're coming from, and to get a better hold on the different ways that their abortion might be impacting their lives, depending on the meditation.
And what we know with mindfulness or, meditations, it's a way, we talk about spiritual transformation, with Christians of faith, having a meditation and getting alone with God can provide where he speaks to our soul, and those can be transforming moments, can't they?
Those are the transforming moments. It really, truly are the transforming moments where we're coming to know his love and really believing in that unconditional love for us and his desire to heal us. And I think that's where we get lost so much, because when we come in for healing, most of us are feeling like we hate ourselves, totally unforgivable, that there's no hope for me, like all of those things, the guilt, the shame, if anybody knew. So it's through, developing a relationship with God, and really recognizing your dignity as a person, right? That abortion is something you did. It's not who you are. You're a child of God, and you have dignity as a child of God, and he loves you, and that he desires your healing.
And not feeling like God has rejected us,
right.
But close to him. And when we talk about mercy, some people really don't know what mercy is, but I look at you say divine mercy, it's God's loving kindness towards us, it's his compassion, and it's also his grace. And so those are the things when we do get into the meditation that God can speak to us directly, can't he? So,
Just when you just said that, like choosing grace, the name of your organization, like when I saw that, I really love that because we don't realize that it's there. Grace is always there for us, but we have to choose it. We do have to choose it ourselves. We could reject it. We could pretend it's not there. We could ignore it. There's got to be an activity on our part to choose that grace, to choose to allow God to love us, to choose to allow him to transform us. Because if we don't choose that, no matter how much is out there for us, we're never going to heal because we're blocking ourselves from a fantastic gift that he's waiting to give us, right?
yes, well, and there's a backstory to that because that the ministry name came from a transformation moment that I had, and it was that I just felt God. I mean, there was an instance where he spoke to me, not audibly, but it's like, Kaylan, you have a choice. You can either. It was kind of like, okay, we are at a pivotal point here. You can either choose my grace, which is sufficient for you, or you can choose a life of shame and condemnation. But you need to decide. What do you choose today? Do you choose my grace, or do you choose shame and regret and despair? I reached my hand up and I'm like, I choose your grace.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it is people, and I know, like, when we talk about mercy, mercy includes his tender loving kindness, his compassion, and his grace. So mercy is just it. I just love the title, and I love what you're doing with the meditations.
Yeah. I think that, like I said, I think all of us come forward for healing so alienated, so full of condemnation, hating ourselves and whatever. And it's transforming. His mercy is transforming. His grace is transforming. And it's just like once you get that, I'm sure you felt the same way. Like, who keeps to yourself? Like, other women are out there suffering, right? It's like, like we got to let them know that they don't have to sit in that despair, that there's hope, there's healing, there's a way out of this. And it's so wonderful to be able to share that with other women and then to walk with them as they go through that, right?
And it is, yeah, it's so wonderful to empower other women because we do want to share, hey, we found the solution. This is it. You don't have to live a life in pain and despair. And we want to just give that gift to you as well to share Christ. So I know we are going to be so blessed. So I have asked Theresa if she would guide us through one of her meditations, and she has so lovingly agreed to. So, Theresa, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to be a participant as you walk us through one of your meditations.
Okay, so I just want to say once again that it starts out with one of the quotes to Saint Faustina, one of the things that Jesus had said to her, and then it'll go into my thoughts or my meditation on it, and then what we do sometimes in the group very often is after we have the meditation, we might throw out some questions for people to just kind of meditate on themselves before the group starts. So people would be called into the room. This would be read, and then there would be given some time to just kind of sit with it and to just really think about how it's impacting their lives and if they could relate to this and then actually get together as a group. But I think I said to you before, some people are using this individually and they just read it. And I've had many women tell me they read it, it really helped them, and they'll put it away for a little while and they'll take it out again. Because I think healing is ongoing, right? I mean, it's ongoing. There's no question about it. God brings you deeper and deeper into healing. So, it just helps different people at different times. But this one that I'm going to read is called Amazing Truth. And obviously it starts out with the quote from Jesus. I desire trust from my creatures, encourage souls to place great trust in my fathomless mercy. Let the weak, sinful soul have no fear to approach me. For even if it had more sins than there are grains of sand in the world, all would be drowned in the immeasurable depths of my mercy. The meditation, Amazing Truth. When we look at our sinfulness, There is a temptation to get stuck there. We keep the focus on ourselves and beat ourselves up because of our misery. We get stuck in, I can't believe I had an abortion. This, however, is false pride. Why should we be so shocked that we could commit such a sin? Once we turn from the will of God, any sin is possible. We are asked to move beyond that self-centered focus to focus on the passion of Jesus and his ultimate sacrifice for our sins, even our sin of abortion. It's a time to meditate on his great love for us. As we come to know this love, we do not make sacrifices during Lent or other times only because we are told to do so, but instead because we cannot help loving him and wanting to return a sacrifice out of that love. Today, take a few minutes to sit before a cross and repeat, Jesus died on the cross for my sins, even my sin of abortion. It's an amazing truth about God's love for you. This is from Pope Benedict. For our sake, God became one of us, sharing our human existence to the fullness and giving us in exchange a share in his own divine life. This great mystery reveals the reality and depth of God's love for us. It also invites us to respond to him in a faith which accepts the truth of his word and shapes our daily lives. And I think like with this one, just to like initiate like a time of really thinking about it, like just that whole thing of, I sometimes joke, not when it's going on, but I do joke later, maybe when somebody's really got healing down a little bit more. Like, I wish I had $1 for every time somebody has said to me, I can't believe I had an abortion. Like, there's such a resistance. Like, we don't want to face the fact that we did something like that. And there's just such a resistance there. And I think one of the huge catalysts for healing is really to be able to say, I'm a sinner. I need God's mercy. And yes, I had an abortion. It's a terrible thing. I'm capable of a terrible sin. Because without God's grace, we're all capable of terrible sins, right? There's no question about it. So I think that that's like a huge thing in the healing journey, is just being able to accept that, to accept the fact that we're sinners, that we did something like that, but then also to bring it to the next step. And what I tried to do in this meditation, to have them to sit before our cross and to recognize God's great love for them, and that he died on that cross for them, each one of them individually. If there was only one of us, he would have done it. And I think that's so hard for us to comprehend, because we're so stuck in our sin and self-hate because of that sin. And it's just really important to like try to move past that, to take the focus off of what you are and what you did, and put it on God, who he is and what he did for us. And I think that's really like such a huge step to be able to do that, to be able to put, like I always say to people, you can't make up for your abortion. No matter what you did, there's no way to make up for your abortion. But the most beautiful thing in the world is you don't have to, because Jesus made up for your abortion by dying on the cross for our sins. And I think that that's just so freeing to recognize that, I could, as a Catholic, do 50 rosaries a day, or I could run to church, or I could do this, or I could do that. It doesn't matter what I do. We're never going to make up for it. There's no way to make up for that. Which doesn't mean that you're not supposed to do good things or help people. It's not meaning that. But there's a difference between doing it out of a place of healing and doing it because you think you need to do it to get the healing. No, that's not God. You don't need to do anything. God did that freely because he loves you. You have dignity as a child of God, and he did that freely because he loved you. So I think this meditation, that's the main thing that we're really trying to get them to really focus on, is their dignity and worth as a child of God, that his love is unconditional, that his mercy is waiting for us no matter what the sin is, and that he desires our healing. He wants it. He doesn't want to say, look at you, you had an abortion. He wants to say, I love you, come to me. I died for you. I want you to have wholeness. I want you to have mercy. I want you to be healed.
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. And now back to you.